can't even acknowledge that to me is very
well.
telling.
I think, Jack, the problem I have. One second, Aaron. One second. The problem I have in relation to your example of literature and reading is that it's just so provably wrong and false. Why was it, if that was the case, that people were hung in this country for possessing a Bible in their own language? Why was it that the church sought to be the only ones who had the ability to disseminate information? I'm sorry, that was an appalling example, Jack.
Can I also let me just very briefly put on 2 points on this. Sorry about this, Jack. You listed the 1 and 2 benefits of religion as 1, literature, 2, music. Well, give me Shakespeare over the Bible any day for literature and Beethoven over the Bible for music. I mean, these are, if you like, works of men that have eclipsed the work of your God, right? Yeah, I mean, really, is that there's some benefit to mankind? If you think that this is the inspiration for literature and music, and that's the benefit of religion, I think we can live without it for the detriment that it's brought us, like witch burning people for owning copies of the Bible in their own language, and so on.
Yeah, well, now you said I could not acknowledge the benefits that religion has brought. Okay, sure. I mean, Hercules was a funny movie. That's based on religion. The Mahabharata was a really long poem, and I understand it was quite popular for thousands of years. Okay, great. I acknowledge that too. I would not say that blues music, certainly it got some advantage from religious influences. Great. But the truth of the fables has actually nothing to do with that. It's a cultural thing. Now, when you're talking about faith and the way faith works and the way belief works, how does that contribute to knowledge?
The three of you just got done. All three of you sort of responded and said different things. All right. So my point was simply this, that we can look back on history and we can say that the structure of religion, of Christianity, provided the means by which things like literature, musical notation, and scientific achievements were made possible. I am not saying that it couldn't have occurred otherwise. I am simply stating the historical fact. That's all.
I need to clarify one thing. When you said that that religion has contributed to science, religion has contributed an obstacle to science. I can't think of an instance in history when religion did not actually try to retard scientific progress. So I wouldn't use that example. Now, if you want to use, again, like blues music, okay, great, I'm with you there. Tal and Lat's probably the only evidence I ever had that a man had a soul. But apart from that, like I said, when you talk about faith-based beliefs, religious beliefs, or the accuracy of your beliefs, how do they contribute to knowledge? We're not talking about culture. We're not talking about art. Okay, there's lots of pretty paintings of other people's gods. I love the work that's been done for the Hindu gods, the Bhakti Hindu pieces, fabulous pieces of art. But those things don't have to be true for that art to exist. Neither does Daffy Duck have to be true for those cartoons to exist. So how does religion contribute to knowledge and the betterment of mankind?
Seem to be taking various assertions and compiling them together. Your last question there was, how has religion been a benefit to mankind? We are at the point of which we were talking about several minutes ago already. And I'm not going to repeat myself because I already said how religion has been a benefit to mankind.
Okay, then
we obviously disagree.
It seems like a trick question. If you are misinterpreting that to imagine that it might be an assertion, which it absolutely cannot be, then let me clarify. Science works opposite of religion in a number of respects. One, in that it eliminates bias. Religion is a bias. And science seeks to eliminate that. Science seeks to work as the antithesis of faith by taking out all the assumptions and the assertions and making sure that any postulation that you make must be based on tangible evidence. It has to be measurable, it has to be verifiable, it has to be testable, it has to be falsifiable. And why is all of this? so that we can make sure that we know how accurate it is. In all the descriptions that you've given thus far, you haven't had to have any degree of accuracy at all, even on the simple yes or no question about whether your religion promises to damn anybody who doesn't believe it.
Okay, well, we've got the next caller in, and I'd like to move on to them. This is a person that called in a few weeks ago, Warrior Christian 1994. His previous call was somewhat short because he was somewhat abusive to, amongst other people, Don Exodus, calling him a sellout prick. He subsequently made a video in which he said that I had a twattish posh accent, which meant that I was elitist. But regardless of that, welcome back to the show, Warrior Christian.
Yes, I actually said that you had a smug, twat, posh voice, not accent.
I stand corrected. What's your point?
Well, excuse me. Of course, it is more important that I apologize for the rudeness there, and unfortunately, Don Exodus is not here for me to apologize to him.
That's all right.
Excellent. So, I would just like to prove the existence of God with the Kalam argument, and please don't interrupt me. And yeah, it's very fun of you to facepalm me and cut me off before you've even given me a chance. Now, Puppy Turtle tried to make this case, and you continued to cut him off. But as we can see that the universe is running on a system of cause and effect, we can trace this back to the first cause, which must have been timeless. It's outside of time, so it must have been timeless. And it's outside of space, so it has to be spaceless. Now, DPR Jones, I'd like to give you this opportunity to apologize for strawmanning this. Kalam argument, as you misspelt it in your last video.
So you wanted me to apologize? You wanted me to apologize for strawmanning it? Let me tell you this. No, just one second.
Let's say Jack on this.
Let me deal with this very quickly. I'm in the process of making a video in which I address this question, and I state quite clearly in the video, and I stand by this, the fact that I misstated the Kalam cosmological argument doesn't detract from the point I was making. Even if I concede the first two propositions in the argument, and I still don't see that the third follows, and I don't concede the first two either. And certainly, the point that I was seeking to make is that as a result of the Kalam cosmological argument, some people infer that the God of the Bible was that cause. I stand by that. That was the point I was making, and I even have footage of William Lane Craig doing just that. So no, I'm not going to apologise for it. Look out for my next video. Jack.
Video. I will be looking out for your next video, DPR Jones.
I know you're a big fan of mine, Jack, and I'm very touched.
By my noodly appendages. Look, the whole Kalam cosmological argument, I don't, aren't people supposed to be calling in to ask questions, or did you want him to just sort of go off and tell us the Kalam cosmological argument?
Jack, as you well know, when it comes to this show, I ask for the general topic. I assume that they're going to be asking a question. If you want to ask Warrior Christian to restate it as a question, then fine, and we'll see if we can.
Warrior Christian, I'm curious to know, do you think that this argument is proof of God's existence?
Yes.
Why?
Because the first cause has to be uncaused, thus it's eternal. And as I was saying before...
No, why?
Because this universe runs on cause and effect. Things happen because of a precursor event to them.
Yeah, but cause and effect in what way?
Something's not just going to drop because of no reason.
Why not? Why not?
Well, you're not, because just look up cause and effect. It's
because that's not an answer. Just because it's not. I mean, this is not an argument for God. You can't prove God's existence using an argument. Now, you can have, you as a Christian, I as a Christian, we can use arguments that sort of reaffirm, given our metaphysical, philosophical assumptions, we can use arguments that sort of encourage us in our belief of God and make us feel as though our belief in God is more reasonable and more rational, but it's certainly not a proof to anyone else. I don't know why we would assume it should be a proof to anyone else that God actually exists. Why should I assume that someone who doesn't believe there's a God will grant me my philosophical, metaphysical assumptions? I don't know why you would assume that they would.
this is like a starting point to open the atheist's mind. Getting to
No, you
what's the
don't. You don't
Christian
open
God.
you don't open someone's mind by trying to prove to them via argumentation that God is real necessarily. Even if you could prove it using words, that doesn't mean anything.
This is a good concept that we have here, where you can acknowledge that the universe runs on cause and effect, and thus it must have had a first cause. And as
No,
I
it's an easily dismissible concept.
And you
It
also
doesn't take
started
much
this
to
conversation, if I may, you started this conversation by saying that you could prove God by the Kalam cosmological argument, not that it was a useful construct. Aaron wants to speak.
Yeah, are you familiar with the Cartesian coordinate system?
No, I'm afraid not.
Okay, it's a mathematical construct wherein you have this thing called an asymptote. Now, if you're not familiar with it, it's going to be impossible for me to explain it. But imagine a curve on a graph where something becomes longer and longer and longer the closer it reaches zero. Now, what you've got as far as time is that 1 second stretches to longer and longer and longer as it approaches the point of the Big Bang. So that at the beginning of the Big Bang, you have 1 second equals eternity. Because time speeds up from that moment on. And time literally does not exist prior to that moment. So it is an eternity. And simultaneously, it is... How do I don't know. If you're not familiar with it, I don't know how to explain this. But if there was a first cause, and we often talk about what this first cause might be, when you talk about the way the gravity works like the fabric of space and time. When you have something that's very, very, very heavy, it weighs on the fabric of space and time. When you have something that's ridiculously heavy, like a black hole, it actually punches through the fabric of space and time. So that it is possible to have something absurdly heavy in every possible imaginary sense punch through space and time to become a catalyst. What could that be? There are so many things that could be. Is it possible that it was Zeus? That it was a guy, a man from modern-day Earth, an evolved simian carrying a spear? Was it that guy that caused the universe to come into existence? This is the problem. When you come up with this type of argument, this is what we're thinking. We're thinking about some guy that was imagined by men at some point of the Bronze Age, was somehow the creator of 11 trillion galaxies. You know, I don't understand this. It doesn't work in our aspect. There are so many other possible causes, all of which are more reasonable for our consideration than a Bronze Age genie. If you want to come up with a first cause, great, we're all about that. But give us one that makes sense.